Well, hi, and welcome to Chapter 9. This is Wireless and Mobile Device Security by Jim Doherty. If you happen to be dropping by and you're not in this class, this is Chapter 9, which is about WLAN auditing tools, but don't be fooled by that title. This is not just about auditing tools. It's about a large number of different kinds of wireless tools that we can use. And these are the general categories that you see here: discovery, protocol analyzers, traffic analyzers, pen testing tools, audit and monitoring tools, and maintenance and management tools. Those are pretty self-explanatory. But as we get into these tools, you'll discover that none of them fit into one or another category. They all do lots of different things. So I'm going to take a look at about 16 or so tool functions, and we'll just kind of briefly go through those as we go through this list, and then we'll look at about 23 specific tools, and we'll see how these things are put together. In other words, what each tool can do, and then we'll look at what each function can do and what tools can do that function. So we'll look at it in both directions. Let's begin with tool functions. First of all, scanners. Well, a scanner simply does exactly that. It scans for Wi-Fi signals, Wi-Fi devices. It helps us identify networks and avoid interference by selecting less crowded channels. That's a scanner. A site survey is something that helps us sort of map our area so that we know how to set up our Wi-Fi devices for best coverage. We don't want signals to interfere with each other, and we don't want dead spots. And so site surveyors are software tools that help us to do that, create those kinds of maps. Stumblers are helpful for finding rogue devices. These are things that help us find networks maybe that are insecure and that kind of thing. A spectrum analyzer isn't so much looking for devices as it is looking at the radio spectrum, the radio frequencies, and what is around us. Where are the interference signals? Where are all of the broadcast signals being sent out at that moment in that location? So it helps us see that whole spectrum and what's going on within individual frequencies in that spectrum. A heat mapper is exactly what it sounds like. It's used for diagnosing coverage issue, improving network placement. It is very similar to these tools up here that do site surveys, and so they could be considered synonymous terms. A traffic analyzer is exactly what it sounds like. It's looking at traffic going on around us and helping us to find problems that might come up. Again, these could be dead spots or they could be interference spots and so on. A packet sniffer looks inside the packets that are floating around in the air and actually looks at the data, including the headers and the data inside those packets that are floating around through the air. A pen testing tool is a very, very powerful tool and one that can help us try to increase our security by trying to break into a network. An inventory tool, pretty self-explanatory, helps us keep track of all the devices and make sure that we know what devices are in use at any given time or might not be in use that should be in use, maybe that are missing. Password capture is exactly that. It is something that either helps you recover a password or helps you change a password in case you want to break into a network system. A decryption tool helps us to decode encrypted data. This might be used alongside of these packet sniffers that we saw earlier, or it might do packet sniffing in and of itself, but it helps us to decrypt encrypted data. Not an easy job, but can be done in some cases if passwords were weak or if the encryption itself is weak. Troubleshooting and maintenance. These are tools that help us to figure out where problems are and maintain things the way they should be going so that our network remains running smoothly. Interference detection does exactly that. It looks for interference and helps us reduce those interference patterns that, again, might be either interfering radio signals or interfering static noise. Roaming analysis helps us figure out how efficient our network allows users to roam from one access point to another. Performance improvement is sort of an overall type of software that just looks for weaknesses and problems that may slow us down. It may do several of the functions that we've already looked at. For example, it might be doing interference detection or hotspot analysis. And finally, rogue detection helps us find rogue devices. We've seen that in several of the other options we've looked at earlier, but again, all of these things overlap, and no device typically will do just one thing or call it just one thing. It might call it several things, or the terminology is very loose among vendors, among products, and among writers and professionals who speak about it. So those are the 16 topics that we're going to look at. And next, we're going to take on, in the next video, some individual tools and look at them.